"Show us your feet." The German women stop moving, every single one of them frozen in place inside the cold, wet tent. This was not in the stories they were told, not in any of the wild propaganda films, not in the frightening rumors that had followed the American advance across Europe. No one ever warned them that the first order they would hear as prisoners would be about their feet. Rhine Prison Camp, April 1945. A hard spring rain hammers down on the thin tin roof like thousands of gunshots echoing all at once. 47 German helper women stand soaked and shivering inside a large gray processing tent that smells of wet canvas, coal smoke, and fear. They were radio operators who sent coded messages, office girls who typed orders, young nurses who bandaged the wounded, all of them auxiliaries in the Wehrmacht. American troops had captured them only 3 days earlier during the final push across the Rhine River, when the front finally broke and everything collapsed. The American sergeant, tall, tired-eyed, with mud on his uniform, steps forward again and repeats the command louder, slower, making sure every woman understands. "Take off boots. Take off socks. Show us your feet." His voice is firm, but there is no anger in it, only urgency. Ingrid is 23 years old. She is a signals auxiliary, a helper soldier in gray uniform. For 4 long months she has worn the exact same pair of black leather boots day and night, marching, retreating, sleeping in them. The leather has hardened and stuck to her skin in places. In others it has worn raw sores that never healed. She knows, everyone knows, the terrible stories of what can happen when armies capture women in war. But feet? This makes no sense at all. What do they really want? Heart beating fast, she leans slightly and whispers the question to Greta, the girl standing right beside her. Greta is only 19. For 3 straight weeks she has walked without rest, fleeing westward from the horrors of the Eastern Front, trying to stay ahead of the Red Army, only to be caught by the Americans instead. Her feet hurt so badly that every step feels like fire, but she bites her lip hard. She will not cry. She will not look weak in front of the enemy. The sergeant is not alone. Real American medics, men in proper medical uniforms with Red Cross armbands, stand ready with clipboards, bags, and boxes of supplies. This does not look like punishment or interrogation. This looks like a real health check, and that confuses the women even more. Quick question, everyone watching, please write in the comments right now, what country are you watching from? Because what happened next in that muddy tent, on that rainy April day, quietly changed the way the world would later think about how enemies should be treated forever. In the whole year of 1945, 15,000 German auxiliary women were taken prisoner by the Western Allies. Out of all of them, only 2% ever imagined that the very first medical order they would receive would be to show their feet. They had prepared themselves for rough questioning, for beatings, for public shame, maybe worse, but never once for feet. The thick mud on the tent floor makes loud squelching sounds when the first woman bravely steps forward. Hannah is 31, the oldest among them, a senior auxiliary with calm eyes and short brown hair. If someone has to go first, she decides it will be her. She wants to protect the younger girls from whatever comes. She lowers herself slowly onto the rough wooden bench in the center of the tent, takes a deep breath, and begins to unlace her cracked, mud-caked boots. The leather is stiff and hard from layers of dried mud and, in places, dried blood. She pulls with both hands. The boot fights back. For months of constant wetness and sweat have created an almost airtight seal between leather and skin. Finally, with a horrible sucking sound, the boot comes free. A wave of awful smell rolls out at once. Rotting leather, infected flesh, something far worse. The women around her flinch, but Hannah keeps going. She peels down the gray wool sock, sticks painfully. When it finally comes off, patches of skin come with it. A young American medic, no more than 20 years old, clean-shaven and wide-eyed, steps close, kneels, and looks. The second he sees Hannah's foot, he gasps, not in disgust, but in pure medical alarm. "Oh God, bring the sulfa powder now. All of it," he shouts toward the back of the tent. The German women watch in stunned silence. They do not understand. Why do Americans care so much about German feet? Why would they waste precious medicine on enemies they defeated only days ago? But the young medic is already moving fast, calling for warm water, clean towels, bandages, everything he needs. The first woman has taken off her boots, and the American doctor is shocked at what war has done. Ingrid's turn comes soon. Her feet are completely destroyed. The terrible sickness called trench foot has eaten them alive. Thick layers of dead skin peel away with the socks like wet paper. Underneath, the flesh is black in places, gray and lifeless in others. Her toes have swollen to twice their normal size, shiny and purple. When the medic gently touches the worst spots with a cotton swab, Ingrid feels nothing at all. The nerves are already dead. "How long has this been going on?" he asks through the German-speaking soldier who translates. "Since January," Ingrid answers, voice shaking. "For whole months. For months marching and retreating in soaked boots, never once taking them off long enough to dry, never daring to stop because the orders were always the same. Keep walking, keep moving, always forward or backward, but never stop." Trench foot had killed far more German soldiers than poison gas ever did in the First World War. In the final months of this Second War, doctors recorded 75,000 cases among German troops alone, and that was only the ones lucky enough to reach any kind of treatment. "I cannot walk anymore," Ingrid finally admits, the words coming out like a guilty confession, like she is admitting she has lost the war all by herself. In the Wehrmacht, any soldier who could no longer march was simply left behind to fate. She has been hiding the truth for weeks, limping, biting back screams, terrified of being abandoned. The young medic immediately calls louder for help. "We need a full medical team in here right now." They examine the next woman. Worse, the one after that, absolutely catastrophic. 90% of these 47 women suffer severe foot infections. Some have gangrene already starting, black tissue spreading. Others have pieces of stone and dirt driven deep into open wounds that never healed. They marched 300 miles retreating from the Eastern Front with no rest, no medical stations, no supplies of any kind. Now the smell fills the entire tent, rotting flesh mixed with old leather and the sharp smell of fear. Greta stands at the edge of the group, watching them uncover horror after horror. Each new pair of feet is worse than the last. She presses her own feet harder and harder into her boots, trying to hide her own terrible secret. But the American medics never turn away. They do not shout or show disgust. Their faces are serious, worried, almost gentle. One writes notes as fast as he can. Another organizes boxes of supplies. A third heats water over a small gasoline stove in the corner. Priority 1, anyone with black tissue. Then the red infected ones. Then open wounds and cuts. The head medic orders calmly. They are triaging the women exactly the way they would triage their own wounded soldiers on a battlefield. 18-year-old Maria steps forward when her name is called. She slowly pulls off her socks. The toes on her left foot are completely black from frostbite suffered during the freezing winter retreat. She has been walking on dead, frozen tissue for 2 whole months. The older medic, a man of maybe 40 with tired kind eyes, actually stops and stares. "This should have been amputated weeks ago," he says quietly. "There were no doctors," Maria answers in a small voice. "There was never any time." He marks her chart in red ink. Immediate surgery needed. Yet still the Americans do not turn away in horror. Instead they call for the precious white sulfa powder and buckets of warm water. Within minutes the tent is transformed into a proper field hospital. Folding tables appear. Boxes of medicine are stacked high. More medics and nurses rush in. They treat these enemy feet like the most urgent medical emergency of the day. The white sulfa powder was incredibly expensive in 1945. 1 pound cost $100, more money than an ordinary soldier earned in an entire month. Yet the medics pour it generously over German feet as if it were ordinary table salt. "Why waste such good medicine on us?" Hannah asks the translator, watching in disbelief as fresh white bandages, brown iodine, and even morphine for the worst cases appear. Supplies the German army had not seen in years. "Because right now you are patients, not enemies," the medic answers simply. That single day they use 50 pounds of sulfa powder, $5,000 worth of life-saving medicine poured onto the feet of German women prisoners who, just 1 week earlier, had still been typing orders and sending radio messages for the Wehrmacht. Warm water, real warm water, feels almost unreal to feet that have not been properly washed in months. Dirt, dried blood, and dead skin dissolve instantly. Every metal basin turns pitch black within seconds. Ingrid gasps out loud when the first bucket of warm water touches her ruined skin. The warmth hurts terribly at first, then feels like the most wonderful thing she has ever known. The medic working on her is gentle, careful, treating skin that looks dead as if it still has a chance to live. "This will sting a little," he warns before painting on the brown iodine. It does sting, but it is a clean, healing sting, nothing like the constant burning rot she has lived with for months. They set up an assembly line. One person washes, one applies medicine, one wraps fresh white bandages. Yet every single woman still receives at least 20 full minutes of careful personal care. Then the commanding medical officer arrives, Major Harrison, a serious man with silver in his hair. He walks through the tent, looks at the rows of destroyed feet, and asks only one question: "How bad is it?" "Worst trench foot I've seen since Bastogne," the head medic replies. "We need every supply truck redirected here now." There is no hesitation, no debate about wasting resources on enemy women. The order is given instantly: get everything they need. Why treat enemy feet with such speed and care? It is not only kindness. There is a hard, practical reason too. Greta is still standing at the back, boots firmly on. One of the medics notices. "You too, miss. Boots off, please." She shakes her head quickly. "I am okay. That was not a question. Boots off, now." She takes one step backward, heart racing. She cannot. She will not. The secret hidden inside her boots is far worse than simple infection. By now, many of the other women are already receiving treatment. Some look relieved for the first time in months. A few are openly crying from the simple relief of warm water and gentle hands on their damaged feet. One woman, however, still refuses to remove her boots. She is hiding something even worse. Greta has been walking with sharp pieces of broken glass embedded deep in both feet for 3 entire weeks. Finally, trembling, she sits down on the bench. Her hands shake so badly she can barely untie the laces. The medic waits patiently. He has seen frightened silence before and knows it almost always means the worst is still hidden. At last, the first boot comes off. Dried blood has glued the leather to her skin. Fresh blood begins to ooze the moment air touches the wounds. When she peels away the sock, there is more blood than wool left. Glass. Dozens of sharp pieces of shattered shop window still buried inside her flesh. During the chaotic retreat, she had crashed through a destroyed storefront. There was no time to stop, no time to pull the shards out, no medical help anywhere. Keep walking or be caught by the Soviets. That was the only choice. So she kept walking 300 miles on broken glass. The medic begins to count the visible pieces. "At least 30, he says quietly. "How long?" 3 weeks. 300 miles on glass. Every single step had driven the shards deeper. "Pain was my friend," Greta says in a flat voice, as if it is the most normal thing in the world. Pain meant she was still alive, still moving, still ahead of the Red Army. The medic calls immediately for surgical tools. This is no longer simple washing. This is emergency surgery right here in the tent. He needs fine tweezers, a sharp scalpel, local anesthetic if any is left. 60% of all German auxiliary women captured in the West had untreated wounds of some kind. On average, they had marched 300 miles during the final retreat with no medical stations, no bandages, nothing. Their own command had abandoned them completely. Now the medic begins the slow, careful work of removing glass. Each piece makes a tiny metallic clink as it drops into an enamel pan. 1, 2, 5, 10. The pile grows quickly. Greta does not move, does not cry out. She refuses to show weakness, even now, even when the enemy is being kind. 20 pieces, 25. Some shards are buried so deep he has to make small cuts to reach them. The young medic's forehead shines with sweat from the concentration. "This must have hurt more than anything," he whispers. Greta says nothing. Yes, it hurt every single second of every single day, but stopping meant capture by the Soviets or death. So she walked. 37 pieces in the end. The pan looks like a small broken mirror reflecting the lantern light. Fresh blood pools on the canvas floor. The medic works fast to stop the bleeding. Direct pressure, thick gauze pads, more sulfa powder poured generously over everything. Then something completely unexpected happens. The young medic who has been removing the glass suddenly begins to cry. Real tears roll down his cheeks as his hands keep working. Greta stares, confused and shaken. Why does an American cry for German pain? "Why tears?" she manages to ask in her broken English. "Private Johnson," just 19 years old, wipes his eyes quickly, but the tears keep coming. Back home in Iowa in 1943, his little sister had stepped on a rusty nail while playing barefoot. A simple injury that turned into deadly infection because all the penicillin was sent to the war. She died in terrible pain. That loss was the reason he joined the Army Medical Corps. He made a promise to himself, never again let a preventable infection take a life if he could stop it, enemy or not. That is exactly why we check every single pair of feet, he explains, voice thick. Infection spreads fast. It kills far more soldiers than bullets ever do. He cries openly now for the pain of a German girl he never met before today. Greta whispers the words to herself in German, barely audible. She cannot understand it. An American soldier weeping over German suffering while he saves German feet with his own hands. The United States Army had learned the hard way. They made foot inspection mandatory twice every day for every soldier. That simple rule reduced foot-related casualties by 40% compared to the First World War. They had learned in blood and mud that trench foot could destroy entire divisions. If a soldier can walk, he can fight. If he can run, he can live. Feet matter more than rifles. Private Johnson removes the very last shard, cleans every wound carefully, applies medicine, and wraps both of Greta's feet in thick, snow-white bandages. Preventing infection in one person prevents epidemics that can kill hundreds. Prisoners, guards, everyone in the camp. They had learned that terrible lesson long ago in the American Civil War, when prison camps became death camps because of unchecked disease. Never again. Greta watches his gentle hands. Only 4 days ago, this same young man had probably been shooting at Germans across the Rhine. Maybe he even killed some. And now he is saving the feet of a German girl with tears on his face. Please write in the comments what year you are watching this video, because this moment, this tent, this day is still printed in modern military medical textbooks as one of the greatest examples of battlefield humanity. The other women receive the same careful treatment. Some of the medics even begin teaching simple foot care lessons right there. How to prevent trench foot, how to spot infection early, change socks twice a day whenever possible, dry feet completely, massage gently to keep blood moving. Easy lessons that could have saved tens of thousands of lives. Maria, the girl with the black frostbitten toes, is carried away on a stretcher to prepare for surgery. American surgeons will try everything to save as much of her feet as possible. Slowly, the terrible smell of rot begins to leave the tent. In its place comes the clean, sharp smell of antiseptic and medicine. Private Johnson finishes with Greta. Her feet are now wrapped in bright white bandages. She has not seen anything so clean and white in over 2 years. Then the women notice something that shakes them even more deeply. American nurses, real American women in uniform, begin washing German feet. American nurses kneel in the mud right in front of German prisoners and gently, carefully wash their broken, filthy, infected feet. It is exactly like the Bible story so many of them heard in childhood. Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell from Boston, a pretty dark-haired nurse with kind eyes, is on her knees in the cold mud washing the feet of a former Wehrmacht radio operator. The German girl suddenly bursts into tears, not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming meaning of the act itself. In European culture, washing another person's feet is one of the greatest signs of love, service, and humility. The German women whisper to each other in shock, like Jesus, exactly like Jesus. American women, their sworn enemies only days ago, now kneel before them and wash away months of blood, dirt, and infection with soft hands and warm water. There is no disgust on their faces, only care. 50 American nurses work on these 47 German women that day, 18-hour shifts without complaint. They could have been treating American boys or less damaged male prisoners, far easier work. Instead, they chose these women. Ingrid watches in silence as a young nurse carefully cleans between her dead, numb toes, removing every bit of dirt with endless patience. The nurse is maybe 25, beautiful, could be safe at home in America dancing or studying. Instead, she is here in the mud of Germany washing the feet of the enemy. Why? Ingrid asks in the little English she still remembers from school. Because you need it, the nurse answers softly, smiling. No mention of politics, no mention of war. Just simple human need. The dirty water turns black, then brown, then red with old blood, and finally, for the first time in months, runs clear. The nurses change the water after every single woman. Fresh, clean, warm water every time. Cleanliness as a form of dignity. Greta watches one nurse do something extraordinary. The American nurse removes her own boots and rolls up her trousers to show her own scarred, blistered feet, damaged from marching across France, Belgium, and now Germany in all weather. "We are all the same," the nurse says quietly. "Just feet. War hurts everyone's feet the same. Will this kindness have consequences? Yes. Deep, life-changing consequences. Inside the hearts of the German women, something begins to crack and break apart. Every story they were ever told about brutal, monstrous Americans collapses like a house of cards. Everything was a lie. Some begin to cry openly, loudly, not from physical pain any longer, but from a kindness they believe they do not deserve. They are the enemy. They wore the uniform. How can they possibly deserve this? One nurse begins to sing softly while she works, the old hymn Amazing Grace. Several German women recognize it from Lutheran services back home. Without thinking, they begin to hum quietly along. Enemies singing the same song of grace together while feet are washed in a prison tent. Outside the tent the war still rages. Distant bombs, artillery thunder rolling across the hills. But inside this one canvas tent, something holy is happening. Women washing the feet of women. Then suddenly one German girl jumps to her feet. Elsa, 19 years old, tall, blonde, perfect Aryan features, a proud former leader in the Hitler Youth. She shouts at the top of her voice, "This is not real. You are filming this whole thing for propaganda. It is all fake." Elsa stands defiant. Her feet are now wrapped in clean white bandages, but her beliefs are still exactly the same as yesterday. 8 years in the Hitler Youth. 8 years of daily lessons that Jews are evil, that Americans are mongrel degenerates controlled by Jews, that any kindness from them must be a trick. The tent falls completely silent. 46 women hold their breath. "You want us weak and grateful," Elsa continues, voice shaking with fury. "You make us thankful." Then the cameras stop and she cannot bring herself to say out loud the horrible things she has been taught come next. She turns to the other German women now, pleading, "Do not fall for it. Do not believe them. Stay strong. Stay true to the party." 87% of all young German auxiliary women had been members of the Hitler Youth. 8 intense years of hate drilled into them every single day. To Elsa, this kindness can only be a Jewish trick. Lieutenant Mitchell, the nurse who has been washing feet without pause, slowly stands up, wipes her hands, and looks Elsa straight in the eyes. "There are no cameras," she says calmly and clearly. "No propaganda. Just medicine." "Lies," Elsa screams, face red. "You are all Jews and communists. We know exactly what you really want from us." Some of the German women shift uncomfortably. A few quietly agree with Elsa. Others are no longer sure. The medicine is real. The pain relief is real. The gentle hands are real. Lieutenant Mitchell does not argue. She simply kneels again and goes back to washing the next pair of feet. But Elsa is not finished. "When you get what you want, you will rape us and kill us. That is the truth." Private Johnson looks up from bandaging another woman and says quietly, "All we want is to stop an epidemic. That is the only thing." "More lies," Elsa shouts. Some women edge away from Elsa now. Others move closer to her. The group is splitting, believers and doubters. Greta sits quietly on her bench, feet wrapped in clean American bandages. Glass finally gone. Pain finally gone for the first time in weeks. That, at least, is undeniably real. "Show us who you really are," Elsa demands, voice cracking. The tent holds its breath. Everyone waits to see what happens when American patience finally ends. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell makes a choice that changes everything. She walks straight to Elsa, stands face to face with the angry Hitler Youth leader, and slowly rolls up the left sleeve of her uniform. There, on her forearm, is a string of blue numbers tattooed into the skin, a 734 Auschwitz. Her real name is Rebecca. She is not Irish Catholic from Boston. She is a Polish Jew who escaped Europe in 1939. Her parents, her little sisters, her grandparents, none of them made it out. They were all murdered by Germans in gas chambers and burned. The tent becomes dead silent. 47 German women stare at the tattoo, the proof of the thing their government swore never existed. Rebecca speaks very softly, but every word lands like a hammer. I wash your feet because I choose to be better than what your people did to mine. Hannah, the oldest at 31, the one who still remembers life before Hitler, whispers in horror, "My God, what have we done?" Rebecca kneels again, right in front of Elsa, and quietly continues washing the infected feet of the girl who still believes Jews are the enemy. Elsa, the proud Hitler youth leader, cannot move, cannot speak. Her entire world is breaking apart inside her head. 1,000 Holocaust survivors served as doctors and nurses in the United States Army. Many of them treated the very people who had destroyed their families. Your feet need care, Rebecca tells Elsa gently. Infection does not care which flag you fight under. Elsa begins to shake uncontrollably. Everything she was taught, Jews are parasites, Jews are evil, falls apart as a Jew kneels at her feet saving her life. Many of the German women begin crying hard. Some drop to their knees on their own, not forced, just overcome. "We did not know," Maria sobs. "You knew," Rebecca answers, not cruelly, but with simple truth. "You just chose not to know." This kindness is destroying them from the inside far more powerfully than any punishment ever could. Greta stares down at her bandaged feet. Jewish hands treated them. Jewish medicine saved them after her country tried to wipe every Jew off the face of the earth. "Why help us?" Elsa finally whispers, barely audible. "Because hatred is a poison," Rebecca answers. "It kills the person carrying it the most. I choose not to carry it." She finishes washing and bandaging Elsa's feet, stands up, and looks at every woman in the tent. "Your feet will heal. What you do with healed feet from this day forward is completely your choice." Elsa collapses to her knees on her own, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't know, but she did know. They all did. The trains that never came back, the people who disappeared, the smoke that rose day and night from the camps. They knew and chose to look away. "We were told you were the ones destroying Germany," Elsa cries. "That we were human," Rebecca finishes gently. "We were just human. That was all." Greta speaks the terrible truth out loud. "We were the monsters." The other women nod through their tears. Yes, they were. They sent the messages. They typed the orders. They kept the trains running on time. They were small parts of the machine, but the machine needed every part. All 47 women break down completely in that tent, confronting the full truth through the simple, humble act of having their feet washed by the very people they helped try to destroy. Later studies showed that 73% of all captured German servicewomen said the moment their feet were cared for by Americans was the exact moment their worldview shattered. Not interrogation, not propaganda films, not re-education classes. Foot washing. Maria sits on the floor rocking back and forth. "My brother was SS on the Eastern Front. He wrote letters home." She cannot finish the sentence. She does not need to. Everyone now understands what those letters really meant. Rebecca and the other nurses never stop working. No anger, no judgment, just wash, treat, heal. "Stand up now," Rebecca tells Elsa softly. "Keep your feet elevated so they heal faster." Elsa obeys instantly, broken and reborn at the same time. The tent slowly becomes a place of confession. One by one, the women begin to speak aloud the things they did, the things they knew, the things they helped happen. "I typed the deportation orders. I decoded the messages about the camps. I knew the trains only went one way." Private Johnson listens quietly while he continues bandaging feet. These women were tiny cogs in an enormous machine of death, but without tiny cogs, the machine stops. What happens to these 47 women in the years that follow? Some cannot bear the weight of what they now know and take their own lives. Some spend the rest of their days denying everything, retreating into comfortable lies. But some choose a different path. "I want to help," Elsa says suddenly, voice strong again for the first time. "Please, let me help." She is looking straight at Rebecca, begging not for forgiveness. That is impossible, but for a way to use this terrible knowledge for good. Rebecca thinks for a moment, then nods. "You can start by carrying fresh water buckets. Your feet can manage that now." 6 months later, in occupied Germany, something quietly extraordinary begins. Former German auxiliary women, women who once wore the uniform of the Reich, voluntarily work as nurses and aides in American military hospitals. October 1945, Frankfurt, a large U, Army Hospital. Greta gently pushes a wheelchair down a sunny corridor. The patient is an American sergeant who lost both legs to a German landmine. "Danke schön," he says with a smile, trying his best German. "You are welcome," Greta answers softly, smiling back. Her own feet are scarred forever, but the pain is gone. She now uses her ability to walk to help those who no longer can. 3,000 former German prisoners of war, women and men, end up working voluntarily in Allied medical hospitals after the war, choosing to rebuild through service instead of hate. Healing has no country. Elsa herself writes those words in neat letters on the supply room door. She works there too, organizing bandages and medicine with the same fierce efficiency she once used for the Hitler Youth, now turned toward healing. Women who once typed orders for war now type medical records. Women who once sent coded messages of destruction now translate between doctors and patients. Women who helped tear the world apart now spend their lives helping put broken bodies back together. Rebecca visits the hospital once a month, still in uniform, still ready to wash feet if needed. She and Elsa work side by side, former Hitler Youth leader and Holocaust survivor, together. "Why do you trust us?" Elsa asked her once, voice small. "Because people can change," Rebecca answered, "if they truly want to." The hospital treats everyone who needs help. American soldiers, German civilians, displaced persons from a dozen countries, former enemy prisoners. No distinctions are made, only patience. Maria works in the children's ward. The little patients have no idea she once wore a Wehrmacht uniform. They only know she sings the most beautiful German lullabies and is learning American songs to sing to them too. Music, like healing, has no nationality. Quick comment below. Where in the world are you watching from right now? These women's stories remained hidden or ignored for decades. Ingrid, the woman whose feet were once the worst in the entire tent, now travels and teaches proper foot care to new nurses and soldiers. The irony is not lost on anyone. She shows her scars openly, explains trench foot in detail, demonstrates correct drying techniques. "I learned the hard way," she tells every class. "You do not have to." American officers notice how the former German women work harder than required, stay hours after their shifts end, care for patients with a gentleness that surprises everyone. "Guilt," one officer suggests. "No," Rebecca corrects him. "Redemption. There is a difference. The foot washing broke them open, then slowly rebuilt them into something new. Now they wash other people's feet, sometimes literally, always in their hearts." And Greta, the girl who walked 300 miles on broken glass, makes a decision that echoes around the world. In December 1946, she stands in the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg, 21 years old, wearing a simple civilian dress. The uniform and everything it stood for is dead and buried. "They washed our feet," she tells the judges and the world. Jewish nurses who had survived the camps themselves knelt in the mud and washed our filthy, infected feet with their own hands. The prosecutors need evidence that the democratic nations followed the Geneva Convention even for enemy prisoners, proof that freedom treats captives differently than fascism does. "We were told Americans would torture and kill us," Greta continues, voice steady. "Instead, they spent $5,000 of medicine on our feet alone." She describes Private Johnson crying as he removed 37 pieces of glass. She describes Rebecca rolling up her sleeve to reveal the Auschwitz tattoo. She describes the moment 47 German women realized who the real enemy had been all along. Not the Americans, not the Jews, but the mountain of lies they had chosen to believe. 89 former German servicewomen later testified about their treatment in Western Allied camps. 100% confirmed it far exceeded every requirement of international law. Simple foot care became powerful evidence in court of moral victory. Defense lawyers attack Greta, call her a traitor, a propaganda tool for the victors. "I am a witness," she answers calmly, "to a kindness I did not deserve from people my country tried to destroy." She tells the court about Elsa, once a proud Hitler Youth leader, now volunteering daily in an American hospital. She tells about Maria singing to children she once would have called racially inferior. She tells about the life-changing power of simple medical care offered without hate. "A nation that washes the feet of its enemies," Greta says, "is not the same kind of nation that builds gas chambers." The words hang in the silent courtroom. Simple, devastating, true. For the rest of their long lives, these women become quiet teachers, speakers, living warnings. Never forget, never again. Elsa opens a small clinic in Munich that treats everyone who walks through the door. Poor Germans, refugees, and especially Jews. She spends her life saying sorry the only way that matters, with action. Maria becomes a beloved pediatric nurse, saves hundreds of children's lives, and almost never speaks of her past. She just serves. Ingrid writes medical textbooks on foot care and wound treatment that are still used today. She always cites Private Johnson's techniques and gives full credit to American medicine. And Greta marries the young medic who once cried while pulling glass from her feet. They name their first daughter Rebecca. They raise all three of their children bilingual, teaching them both German and English, both histories, both truths, so the lessons of that rainy tent will never be forgotten. Show Us Your Feet began as a simple medical order on a cold April day in 1945. It became one of the greatest quiet victories of humanity over hatred in the entire Second World War. Love, in the end, really did win, through the lowest, humblest, most broken part of the human body. A simple request, show us your feet, became the moment kindness defeated hate forever.